Welcome back to another edition of Cubs on Tap. I am your host tonight, Joey Ricotta at Joey Knows Nothing. I am joined by a special guest with the Dingers podcast. You've probably heard him before. You've definitely seen his face on Twitter, heard his thoughts on Twitter. Jake, I was going to ask you this beforehand. Is the Jay silent? Because when I was watching the Kerry Wood, the documentary of the 20 strikeout game, sounded like she said Bujnowski, but is it Buj or is it Bujnowski?
So yeah, the nickname Buj comes from everybody mispronouncing it Bujnowski. So it is Bunowski or Banowski, however, whatever is like simpler for people to say. Just no J in there. It's just, the Polish heritage. They stuck it in there. I'm sure it's supposed to be pronounced like Bujnowski or something. I don't know, but okay. we Americanized it a long time ago.
Well, hey, that makes a couple of us now because my name is Americanized to Ricotta, but then you hear Ron when he introduces, which, by the way, he's a 100% a better play-by-play guy on these podcasts than I am. When Ron Luce at Luce on Tap, when he introduces me, he goes, Joey Ricotta. And, that's more of the traditional Italian way to say it. I Americanized it. We've Americanized it to Ricotta. But nonetheless, Jake, I am excited to have you here to talk Cubs baseball, even though we are in the midst of a 10-game losing streak. And they just got swept out of the federal landmark by the San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
Just the state of the Cubs right now is like, I don't even know. I really don't know where to start. I guess we'll start with Monday because we did a show on Sunday with Dubs. Dubs was at the last two games, at least for sure. He had his birthday yesterday, and then unfortunately he got to watch two losses, but I hope he still had a great time there. I know he still had a great time. I got to see a lot of people, but when you're losing like this, like the Cubs are, it's of course going to draw fans off the deep end. They don't want to see losing. We don't deserve this as Cubs fans. We've put up with this team long enough, but at the same time, like, is it really something to freak out totally about? I guess let's start with Monday. Justin Steele went out there. He pitched 7 strong innings, 1-run baseball, 3 strikeouts, no walks. And they ended up losing the game. I mean, they had the lead. They ended up losing the game. The bullpen blew it. Give me your thoughts on that game and then the Kyle Hendricks game, which was the next day. And Hendricks went out there, pitched into the 6th inning, only allowed 1 earned run, and got pulled after 78 pitches. The bullpen blew it again. So the bullpen, which was a strength coming into the year, has really let them down lately. Jake, give me some of your thoughts on at least the first 2 games of the series.
Yeah, so I think you broke it down really well. My initial thoughts with the first game of the series specifically were around Steele. I mean, he came in, he pitched 7 innings, like you said. 3 strikeouts is not great, but the Padres, I believe it's the Padres, they're either really good against righties or really good against lefties. And I can't remember which way that splits. Shit, I should have looked that up before this. But I want to say that it's the Cardinals are good against lefties, I think. And he pitched really well against the Cardinals in his start before this Padres game.
Yes.
And that came off of advice, supposedly, from John Lester, telling him to establish his fastball. And he gave him specific locations on where for, left-handed and right-handed batters. And we saw that in this most recent start. I don't have the stats here. I was trying to pull it up, but I think I remember seeing that he threw his fastball somewhere around like 65, 70% of the time in that game, which is insane. Like, I don't know what to compare that to. I mean, like, I don't think there's a modern pitcher that throws any pitch that often, let alone a fastball in the modern era of baseball. You just see, like, the big thing around pitching right now is to establish your best pitch. And usually for guys, it's a slider or a curveball or a changeup, and then work off of that. So what we may be seeing here with Steele is that he's establishing the fastball being his best pitch. It has a great spin rate. I'm looking at StatCast right now. His fastball spin rate is in the 92nd percentile. So there must be something, some ride on the fastball that's allowing it to play up. He's pitching it, or he's throwing it up in the zone, and he's inducing weak contact. His hard contact rate is in the 79th percentile, and average exit is in the 88th. So he's looking really good, and he's trending in the right direction with all of the peripheral stats. you love to see it, because before these last two starts, I was kind of thinking, like, you know what? He's probably better suited for the bullpen, and just kind of conceding that. But now it's seeming like, hey, maybe he figured something out with the pitch mix, and the fastball is going to work for him. And he's got those good breaking pitches. He's got that curveball and that slider, and you hope that he's able to establish the fastball and then drop in the off speed when it makes sense to. And guys aren't expecting it because they expect him to throw the fastball, 60+% of the time. So. And aside from that too, like, one of the things that I've really been hung up on this season is the lack of depth from the starting rotation. So you mentioned, leading into this, the bullpen regressing. And a lot of it is because they've been so taxed because the starters have not gone deep into ball games. I tweeted a stat today that Cubs pitchers through yesterday are averaging 4 2/3 inning per start. And that's not good. I think I had it rated by starters and then innings pitched. And I think the Cubs were 28th out of 30th in terms of innings pitched by their starters. And that's not sustainable. And that's why you're seeing the taxation on the bullpen right now. So, I mean, that's the big thing. We can get into the offense, but, what are you seeing from Steele?
Well, first of all, before I touch on Steele, our boy Ron Luce here, who's not on the mic tonight, he said Joey and Bouge, which I think it sounds better when it's just like shortened like that, just to say the Bouge, Americanized, equals electricity on the mic. That's what Ron says. We got our boy Scott Crawford in the comment section as well. So definitely, if you're watching this, even on Twitter, we can't see your comments on there. So go to YouTube, jump in the comments section, let us know your thoughts, and just check in with us. Tell us how you're doing. Can't imagine it's that great, but like you said, just given the state of the Cubs right now. But like you said, Bouge, I mean, this is Justin Steele. I was kind of thinking the same thing, right? I've had these conversations in the past with Ron. I've had them with Juice, where we look at it and we're like, Keegan and Steele, like, if you kind of alternated those two every other game out of the bullpen in like that fireman role, that long relief role, you got a lefty, you got a righty that you can bring in any situation out of the bullpen. That's pretty dynamic. Not many teams have that capability where you can have a lefty or a righty come out of your pen and give you 2 or 3 innings on any given night, really, and face any hitter in any lineup, because they can get both lefties and righties out for the most part. They might have their certain struggles splits-wise against the certain platoon, that they're more weakness on a certain platoon, but really that's why they are qualified as starting pitchers as well, and that's why you can use them as a swing spot starter. What we're seeing from Steele here, I love that you mentioned that. I looked it up as you were talking. It was 70% that he threw that fastball, 14% he threw that slider, and it was like 82.6 miles per hour average exit velocity. That's not bad, and that's total.
No, that's really good. That's really good.
Total for the entire game. That was really freaking good, and that was against the Padres, but that Cardinals start pretty much started it off, right? Like you mentioned John Lester telling him, hey, throw that fastball a little bit more. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. And I want to see more before I 100% commit to him as even a starter, even though it's been like 2 really quality outings of 7-inning baseball, because I want to see how other teams attack him or adjust to him.
Yeah.
Using with the pitch usage being what it is, because, we've seen it now with Swarmer, right? And now that'll kind of segue us into the Wednesday and Thursday games, the bookend games. Tuesday and Wednesday were just got brutal. Out of hand.
Fucking
just
brutal.
Got absolutely out of hand, Jake. I don't have the final scores in front of me right now.
Yeah, but we got Tuesday was, is that right? I thought it was way more. Tuesday was 12-5.
12. Okay, yeah. Wednesday was horrible.
Wednesday was 19-5.
19-5 on a Wednesday, and that was the Caleb Killian start that everyone was excited for. I was excited for it. I know you were, Jake, like getting his second major league start. But Swarmer, I'll kind of work in reverse here. Swarmer is a fastball slider pitcher. He throws his slider a ton. I mean, he throws it more than, I don't know how many other pitchers in the league, but it's got to be right up there as far as like his slider usage goes. And teams are making the adjustment to him. And like the Yankees, they were taking him out for a bunch of solo shots. He will give up home runs. He didn't look all that great today. I don't know, man. Is he a long-term piece in the rotation? I don't think so, but
No, I don't think so. I think he's definitely going to be a bullpen piece, because I think if you bring in, his fastball is not great,
yeah.
but if he treats that slider, which really, I don't know, for those listening, his slider works more like a splitter. It has more. Is it depth? I can't remember what the different breaking
For his slider
are. Yeah, so it breaks down more than breaks more vertical than horizontal, his slider.
Okay.
But apparently he can alter his release. Maybe it's the grip. I don't know. He changes something and he can get more horizontal movement on it. So I guess the slider kind of works as 2 pitches, but primarily you're going to see it as kind of like a splitter adjacent pitch, or like a baby 12-6 curve, and that's what you're going to see him throw it as. And I don't know, man. Like, he's definitely a 2-pitch pitcher. You can see it work in starting rotations nowadays, but if it's up to me, like, I'd probably put him in the bullpen as like a middle reliever guy, and hope he can. Like, the problem is that he does give up fly balls, so you can't even hope that he works ground balls. But it's a cool story, man. It's a fucking excellent story, and I hope he's able to establish himself in the bullpen. But I don't know. I think that it's an experiment right now. It's not trending in the right direction. But that said, he was able to give 4 innings today. You would have liked to see more, as we've already talked about the tax on the bullpen. But then the bullpen, more or less did their job the rest of the game. I mean, I think he gave up 4 runs today. I don't have this box score up. I want to say, did he give up 4 runs today?
Swarmer gave up. It was 6-4 was the final. Swarmer gave up. I'm pulling it up right now. Swarmer gave up 4 earned runs, 4 hits, 5 walks, which really did him in. 4 strikeouts. He struck out a few batters in the 3 2/3 that he pitched. 1 home run allowed. So he's still giving up. He's going to give up at least 1 home run, it looks like, in every outing. Yeah. But Frost came in a third of an inning, 1 hit, nothing allowed, 1 strikeout. Brandon Hughes, 1 2/3, 2 hits, 1 run, 0 walks, 1 strikeout. Givens, 1 1/3, 3 hits, no runs, no walks, a strikeout. I looked at actually his hard hit profile today, which was weird. I just checked out the StatCast box score. Looked like he was giving up some hard hits, was Givens, but I did not get to see when he was actually in the game. At that point, I think I was doing a live show of Bears on Tap today with Beat On. So if anybody is a Bears fan, check that out. We already did that. Quick little plug there. But I mean, David Robertson came in. He gave up a run as well. 1 hit.
Long shot. I think he gave up a bomb to oh God, who was it?
He did give up a homer.
Profar?
Yeah, okay, that would make sense because Beat On, he didn't say who it was off of, but when we were live, Beat On goes, "Oh, Profar just took 1 out," and I'm like, "Oh,
I think
shit.
Profar just like got all of it." I mean, it didn't go that far out, but it got out in a hurry. There's a line drive off of the right field, little video board, which was uncharacteristic. Like, I think Robertson's going to be fine. He's going to be. I think we'll get a good piece back for him. Givens has been disappointing, man. I don't know what it is. I mean, like, he's just been inconsistent. I don't know what his overall numbers look like.
He's got a 4.38 right now.
Yeah, that's not great. That is not great.
He's got, and that's the thing. He's got that funky arm slot.
Yeah.
The way that he throws the ball, you would think it'd be. He throws with a little bit of gas. He's got some nice stuff to him. It's just like you said, the inconsistency. I mean,
I get
really frustrated
funny because his K rate is high and his expected batting average against is really good, but everything else on StatCast is looking pretty rough. So I don't know, man. I mean, he's 32 years old. I think he was the right guy. Like, I when we signed him, I was like, hell yeah, I think it's a really good piece to pick up. And I obviously knew what the intention was, that he was going to be flipped, and I knew that it was either going to be Gibbons or Robertson that got the bullpen or the closer job. And I'm not surprised. I'm stoked for Robertson that he got it, man. Like after I think he got Tommy John like a year ago. I think he came off of it last season, and he pitched in the Olympics. I don't remember if he got picked up by a team last year, but for him to come back and play like he's played this summer has been fun to watch. And obviously a good veteran presence for the bullpen to have right now with the young arms coming up. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think Swarmer's a bullpen arm long term. I think honestly, the move that they need to make, I think his last outing went really well. Bring up Cam Sanders, man. 25-year-old.
Oh, interesting. All right.
So I knew, I just didn't tweet it because we were on our way up north to see family. But in Swarmer's first start, whatever it was, like 2 weeks ago, there was a TBD as the starter listed still on like Friday afternoon. And I was going to tweet, Swarmer's going to be the one called up. I had it in my mind. I didn't tweet it because I was driving, and sure enough, he was the one called up. And I think it's been great to see what he can get. Like, it's been cool. Do you listen to Hap's podcast? Listen to the Compound?
Yeah, well, every now and then when I get a chance. I mean, I like listening to it. I just don't always get a chance to. But
yeah.
What is there something that you kind of picked out from it?
Yeah, so they talked about Swarmer, and Dakota Mekas was basically saying like Swarmer's one of those guys that just like doesn't really let shit get to him, and because of that, like he can go out and pitch 6 innings, even if he's getting shelled. Like he'll keep going out there. Like it doesn't bother him. So at this stage and where the Cubs are, like they probably need like that's why I was kind of bummed. Like after Dakota said that, I was like, okay, like we'll get at least 5 innings out of him today. But his pitch count just like it was like sky high in the fourth. It was like I think he got up to 80 pitches in the fourth, and I was just like, that's it.
The walks really did him in, I think. Whenever you walk so many guys, and that's kind of uncharacteristic, I think, for him. I don't think he's a guy that's going to walk too many guys. And he had back-to-back quality starts before the Yankees series?
Yeah, I think before the Yankees game.
So, it's just a matter of teams catching on to what you do at a certain point, I think, too, being in the big leagues. It's when you have that, we've talked about being a 2-pitch pitcher as a starter is not the greatest thing in the world, which is why I'm kind of treading lightly here with Justin Steele. I love what I've seen from him the last 2 starts and the more pitch to contact type of pitcher that he's been and using and increasing that fastball usage. But I don't know, like if he can keep his command pretty sharp with the fastball and with the slider when he mixes it in, I think we got something here, even as a starter.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you said it too. Like, it'll be interesting to see if the league can adjust, because this has been it's only been 2 games that he's changed his pitch mix to really feature the fastball. So you got to wonder, like, is the fastball spin that good that it doesn't matter if guys can adjust, or are guys going to be able to adjust to it up in the zone and start mashing it? And it is worth saying, just to go back to it, the last 2 outings that he had against the Padres and the Cardinals, these numbers are both after they faced Steele. So up to through today, the Padres are number 9 in the league in terms of WRC plus against lefties at 110, and the Cardinals are number 4 in 119. So those weren't cakewalk matchups.
They're good against lefties.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I mean, hey, man, if the guy can go out there and show that it doesn't matter who's at the plate, maybe we got a long-term thing here. And I should have prefaced that by saying, like, don't expect Steele to be – I don't think anybody does, but don't expect Steele to be like a number 2, number 3 guy. Like, Steele is a back end of the rotation complimentary guy when the Cubs have, a Lester, Arrieta, Hendricks in their primes, 3-headed beast at the front of the rotation. Then you've got Steele, backing those guys up, which is that's what we need right now. I think I kind of talked about it. I think I talked about it on Dingers last week, that's kind of what we're seeing now. I talked about Dan Kantrovitz, and
Jake?
We're seeing that like the Cubs are working on finding these complementary pieces right now. I think the only guys on the team right now that might be like not superstars, but could be like perennial all-stars are Happ and Horner. And I say those guys because I hope that they'll both be long-term pieces. I don't mention Willie because he's as good as gone at the deadline. But I hope that they keep Happ, and they want to trade him next year, like, because that's his last year in arbitration. He's got one more season after this. Fine. But I really hope they keep him through this season. But
I'm with you. I mean, that's the thing too. We haven't even talked about Killian really or gotten in depth with Killian yet. But as far as Contreras goes, today I would like to kind of go back or touch on this a little bit. Jed Hoyer did meet with the press. He did talk about Contreras, but he didn't talk about Contreras. He was asked about Contreras and trading him, and he did not answer the question. He said, I'm not answering that. So, like reading between the lines, it's almost like you said, he's as good as gone. And I hate to say that because by all accounts, I mean, you look at the expected numbers, you look at the hard hit rate, you look at the barrel rate, you look at just the surface stats. Contreras is the best hitting catcher in the league this season. And it's not really that close. Like there's some guys that, you can comparatively talk about but they're not really qualified as far as stats go. At least they weren't last time I looked. But like the advanced metrics, all that stuff, Contreras is the best hitting catcher in the league. And I mean, what did he had a 2 home run game in this series. I forget which game that was now. Was that the first game, the second game with Hendricks? I think it was the Hendricks outing.
I think so.
But either way, man, it's like, I don't know. Happ has been so consistent this year. You talk about Horner as well. I know you're a big Horner guy. Yeah. I am as well. He's proven to people that he could play shortstop every day. And we don't know what's going to happen at the trade deadline. We don't know. Maybe Happ's getting moved. Like that's also a possibility. But I'm looking at this team right now, and I put out a tweet earlier just to kind of, I don't know. I guess I was real irritated. We'll just say that. I was real irritated. And you know what? I'm going to crack one right now. Cracking a beer because I need to kind of chill while I'm also going to get a little elevated and hyped up here. Because, Jake, I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of everybody putting all of the faults of this team on Jed Hoyer and Tom Ricketts. I understand they didn't spend in the past, and maybe I'm the nut job for defending these guys right now, right? And nobody wants to defend these guys, the ownership. No one wants to defend the GM. How could you put a product on the field like that this year? They made a decision to go out there and to sell these guys at the deadline last year. The returns they've got, and I watched your video on Twitter today too, and that's how I knew. I was like, this is a perfect match for a podcast tonight.
Yes, sir.
Because you had a lot of the similar thoughts that I have. It's like the returns they got for those trades last year. Say what you want. I love those guys that were traded just as much as any Cubs fan out there. I will never say a bad thing about any of those players other than, Javi Baez struck out a lot, whatever. It's like minimal stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I am as grateful as any Cubs fan for what they did here with the Cubs. That said, this team needed to get shaken up. It needed to get shaken up. They were not winning another World Series with the core the way it was constructed. Just wasn't happening. We didn't win since 2016. They were winning seasons. They got to the playoffs and they stalled out. And you could talk about lack of spending in the years that when they were in that competitive window. Yes, that's all. It's all true. They didn't push up enough against that luxury tax or go past it like some other teams are willing to do, like the Dodgers, big market teams. But this is where it's like, okay, you knew what it was going into the season this year. Fans should have known. And if you didn't know, I'm sorry, but this team was never going to be just a little bit better than 500. there was a very, very slim chance that they were going to compete for a wild card or for a division. That would have taken injuries to the Milwaukee Brewers pitching rotation more than likely, would have taken injuries to the Cardinals. It would have taken the Cubs being completely healthy, which they're not. Say Suzuki's on the IL, Stroman, Wade Miley has barely played, and he's pitched well when he's been in there. Stroman is 5 starts before his last outing. He was very good, 1.80 ERA. That's a signing everyone was excited about. He was very good up until the last start he made and then back on the IL. Suzuki, we saw it when he first, he has to make the adjustments though, and he was kind of coming back around. But when he first started out, very, very good. Those are signings that Jed Hoyer made, and I'm not going to sit here and say he did all that he could spending-wise, like they got even near the luxury tax this offseason. They did not get anywhere near the luxury tax. They still aren't. But when you were doing that and you knew it was a transition window or transition season, it's all about maximizing your costs for when the team is most competitive to hit that window and be as highly as competitive as possible. I think he's honestly looked at what's happened over the years and what happened in the years past when this team was in its competitive window. They didn't have the resources to spend as much. They had some money. We could go up against the luxury tax and over like other teams. You want to put that on Ricketts, fine. But he's learned from the mistakes of the big contracts now early on. They don't mean shit. It's what you do when you're ready to actually compete.
Right.
And that's why he's not giving a time frame right now, Jake, in my opinion. I'm sorry, I just went on like a huge rant right there, but I'm going to let you get off your thoughts because I know you have a lot of thoughts on the situation.
No, man, I think you're right. I mean, so I got a little bit of backlash on the video that I sent today, or I tweeted today. This one guy said, he just responded about an hour ago. He said, pretty silly to say that Jed, quote, inherited a roster with a lot of holes, unquote. Jed created far more holes than he inherited. And the guy went on, and it's like, dude, you missed the point altogether. I'm not going to defend Ricketts. I'm kind of indifferent. Like, most owners in this game don't influence things as much as fans like to think they do. That's why they hire general managers and presidents of baseball. Yeah, the manager is going to have or the owner. Obviously, we saw Reinsdorf is the reason why La Russa is the manager on the South Side.
Oh, man.
We don't have to deal with that shit.
Yeah, he's not doing that at least. That's a positive.
God. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to break this down. What Jed is doing right now, first of all, we can't see everything. I think what fans miss is that Theo was very candid in his interviews. He was very honest with fans. Jed's a little bit more closed up, and there's a competitive advantage to that. People should take note. There's a reason why he's not playing his hand, and there may be a point in his tenure where he's able to say truthfully, yeah, I wasn't honest. This is why. Here's where we are now. But he can't do that right now. He can't put all of his cards on the table. To say that he created holes in the roster and he didn't inherit those holes is kind of ludicrous on its face. What should have happened when Theo was president, as soon as stuff wasn't really clicking again in 2017, it shouldn't have been blamed on a hangover. Instead of saying what did he say? Was the end of 2017 when they had the reckoning? Instead of that shit, instead of pulling that, trade whoever's value was high that you knew you weren't going to sign to an extension, and then put all your resources toward extending whichever guys you retain and don't trade before their walk year, which is what we just experienced last season.
Yep.
What that does is it brings fresh talent into a system that desperately needed it at the time. The other kind of perfect storm that I described that happened, I think I talked about this on Dingers last week. The perfect storm that happened was that all of these guys that were part of the quote unquote core of the last, great Cubs team, they all came up at the same time and were on the same timetable to go into their walk year the same season. And I'm sure like there's only so much you can do about that, right? Because like it made sense to call up those guys when they called them up. And it just so happened that like their contracts, you know, the team control all expired at the same time. It's unfortunate. I wish it would have happened another way. Obviously, Rizzo's contract control is actually an extension that expired at the same time. He was done with he signed an extension early on, so it wasn't an arbitration process, which I think is important to note. So that one of those guys did get signed to an extension. That said, I think what Jed is doing now, and I can't take credit for this idea. I believe Sahadev Sharma was talking about this on The Athletic. Onto Waveland is the Cubs baseball podcast. I think what Sahadev was talking about was the moves that Jed made this past offseason, the bigger moves in signing Suzuki and Stroman are the types of moves that we're probably going to see this upcoming offseason and maybe the following offseason, depending on how the young talent develops. And that's fine. Like people are saying like, oh, you know, you could have spent money to get Carlos Correa. You could have spent money to get Baez back. Or any of the guys that like, yes, you could have. But then what would you have been left with? A team with a ton of holes, a super high payroll because you've got one guy that you signed to a 10-year contract or whatever it would have been. Something asinine, like something ridiculous. And you've got one. And like, look, Baez is the worst hitter in the league again. We all know that can flip on its head in an instant.
He's going to have a great second half, and no one's going to think twice.
I hope he does.
Right?
I really hope he does. I've got friends who are Tigers fan. My cousin's a Tigers fan. Like I hope that Baez regains form, but right now he's shitting the bed every game. He looks terrible.
What's Bryant done? What's Rizzo? Rizzo's hit bombs, but he's not been great.
Rizzo's batting in the low 200s, and I know averages and everything. He's doing what you need to do as a left-handed bat at Yankee Stadium, and he's playing good defense. So he's doing well for the Yankees, and I'm happy for Rizzo. And then finally, Schwarber. Like Schwarber's batting like 210 or something like that. Last I checked for the Red Sox. For the Phillies. I'm not really upset that Schwarber is gone. I wish that we would have tendered him a contract and traded him instead of just non-tendering him. I think that was stupid, but I think it's all a long-winded way of saying that we can't evaluate Jed yet. We simply cannot.
Yes, exactly.
And it's worth noting that the industry consensus, supposedly after the deadline last year, was that Jed did very, very well in those trades. And like I said in the video today, we're seeing those returns at the lower levels so far. It's going to be a minute before we can actually assess, whether those trades were good. But right now, they look pretty damn good.
They look great. Dude, they got Bryce Ball.
Yeah,
for Jock Peterson, who wasn't hitting last year, and people that's like bottom of the tier of the trades that he made, right? Yep. Daniel Palencia in the Andrew Chafin deal. Like, there's a lot of deals that people are not even realizing that were made. That was like, holy shit, they got that guy for him, and Bryce Ball's killing it at the minor league level this season.
Yeah.
So, anyways. Jake, I could not agree with you more on this entire topic, and I'm just going to say a few more things here in regards to Jock Peterson as well and Kyle Schwarber, because you said, you weren't that upset that he was gone. At the time, I mean, who doesn't love Schwarber, right?
Right.
Who doesn't love Schwarber?
At the time, I was pissed.
But at the time, I was pissed, but I thought it kind of made sense because Jock Peterson never really got an entire try there in Los Angeles because of how much talent they had and the power that – look what he's doing this year. After he was traded to the Braves too last year, he had a lot of success. He's hitting 269 this year with a pretty damn good amount of bombs.
He's
been good there for the Giants. So, I mean, there's some moves that's like, okay, did he just get a slow start with the Cubs? Maybe that was a good signing with the Cubs last year too, and he just got off to that slow start. And I believe he might have hit the IL too. At some point earlier
that sounds
in the season.
This season or last season?
Last season when he was with the Cubs.
Yeah, that sounds correct. So the fact that we got anything for him in a trade is
he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
So I guess my point here is too, like you said, nationally, they were looking at the Cubs as like that's a huge success. What they did on the trade market, what he did at the deadline. Does it suck? This is what hits Cubs fans super hard, I think. all those guys got traded at once.
Mm-hmm.
It was like doomsday, right? It hit me. It hit me as much as I'm playing it off that it didn't hit me and that I'm happy about the returns. It hit me 10 times harder than the way I'm sounding right now.
I couldn't think. I couldn't work for days afterward. Like that weekend, I was the worst. And then the following week, like the days it happened, I was just like, I didn't want to work. I was a wreck.
It affected our moods.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like it really affected our moods. And I don't blame fans for still being upset about it, I guess, because just the way that it happened was like, man, this sucks. But I'm at the different stage now, Jake. I'm at the stage where it's like, and I've been here before the season's even started. I want to see what happens with this team, the new core that's going to be produced through these prospects, hopefully, because they look good at the minor league level. I mean, we could talk on day's end about the different players that are doing what. I mean, Kevin Alcantara is one of them. Pete Crow Armstrong's another one, rising through the ranks. We got a little taste of Caleb Killian, I guess, to go back to his start in the third game of the series against the Padres.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Should we touch on that?
We definitely should, yeah. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I know he didn't – I think he had 5 walks and he didn't strike out a batter. To me, that was the most notable thing of the outing was he did not strike out a batter.
Same.
And I'm also, like, before I hear your thoughts, I want to say I don't really think we should be freaking out all that much because young pitchers, especially starting pitchers, they struggle when they come up more times than not. And now with that said, I'll turn it over to you, Jake. What did you think about his outing and what did you make of it?
Yeah, I was watching really closely because I've got him on my dynasty team in fantasy. So I put him in the lineup. I thought that he would, I thought that he'd at least give me, some ball. Like he's known for his control. So for him to walk 5 batters is a big red flag. But what I was seeing, like obviously I don't know mechanics very well, but you could just tell that something was off physically with him on the mound. It just felt like he didn't settle in. I want to say like the 3rd inning, he started to hit his spots a little bit better. I think he was just a little amped up, losing a lot of pitches up in the zone. And then he was overcompensating and then losing shit low in the zone, below the zone. And if you paid attention to where the catcher's mitt was, like where he was called, I can't remember who, I think Gomes was catching. If you were paying attention to where Gomes was calling for it, I mean, way off, like way off. And it was tough to watch because I think Boog said it during the broadcast, something along the lines of like, you expect young pitchers to struggle at some point once there's an adjustment period. But I think what feels weird today is that it's only his 2nd start and he's struggling. And that resonated with me.
Was that a confidence thing, you think?
I don't know. I don't really know what it is because I looked back. I remember seeing his after his major league debut, which looked really good.
Outside of 1 inning.
But like he looked, he had 1 bad inning. His next minor league start was not good. I think it was like 2 innings, crooked numbers, walks. So you wonder if there was something in between there. Was there an adjustment that the MLB staff gave him? It could have been a lot of things, but I think the positive now that I've seen talked about is he's going to get to work with the major league staff. He's going to be up. He should stay up. Like there should be no reason to send him back down. Like, I'm sorry, send Swarmer back down before you send Killian back down. Give somebody a phantom IL stint before you send Killian back down. Let him work with the major league staff to figure out how he needs to attack hitters and continue to grow and progress as a player at the major league level. It was tough. It was really tough to watch, but I'm not discouraged. I just think it was a bad start, and he's got to tweak some things mechanically, and hopefully he comes out the next inning and shows us what he can do.
Absolutely. I think you basically hit the nail on the head. I mean, me and Dub sat on here on Sunday, and we talked, and we did the math before hopping on the show, and we're like, he lines up for a Wednesday start. And then what do you know? Then he was starting Wednesday's game, and I looked at his log from that AAA outing, and wasn't that great, like you said. He didn't have that great of an outing at AAA after going back down. But, we don't know what the message was at the major league level. We don't know what Hottovy or Ross told him, or, the development staff, the pitch lab staff. We don't know what they told him to go work on at AAA and then come back and figure it out. And he could have been very much so these last two outings just really working on that. And, I broke down there's an article up at ontapsportsnet.com right now if you want to check it out. It's from his first outing, dissecting Caleb Killian's first major league start. I noticed a few things just by looking at especially his StatCast, and I went batter by batter though, rewatching the outing. And his cutter is fantastic. Like, his cutter doesn't get talked about enough. As far as like the movement on that cutter, his cutter is absolutely fantastic. Like, we're talking speed and movement range of like Corbin Burns and Walker Buehler level for that cutter. And that's just an absolutely remarkable pitch if he can really use that quite a bit more. But we would like to see more four-seamers too. I forget if it was righties or lefties. There was a pitch discrepancy usage with which one he was using more so against lefties and more so against righties. I believe he was throwing the cutter more so against righties, and the lefties he was throwing more of the four-seamer. But I would have liked to see more cutters against the lefties because I feel like you can jam them up a little bit, maybe get some more weaker contact that way, like Mariano Rivera style.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly what was happening. I'm not saying his cutter's like Mo level.
No,
that's just
yeah.
Insane. But I mean, he only needed that pitch. But just like I'm not sure exactly what the usage was in this last outing. But I'm still encouraged by what Killian can be, and I don't think anybody should really write him off. As you were saying, Jake, like, no one should write him off after this one bad, horrible outing and not getting a strikeout. It was eye-popping, though. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully he does stick around in this rotation. It sounds like, they want to see what he can do at the major league level now, because he's done just about everything at the minor league level. I think just, making some tweaks here and there, and then just building the confidence and getting the command down. He's been long known in the minor leagues as a command guy. So the fact that he didn't have his command this last outing, it's like, I don't think it's going to last too long, like as long as the tweaks that he's making are not super mechanical tweaks. I think it's going to be okay as far as in the long run goes, and he'll be a mainstay in this rotation. I want to touch on something here in the comment section. Let's see, Cody, our boy, Cody Del Mendo said, guys, let's pull it up here. Guys, all this is fine and the right way to look at things, but the Cubs have been embarrassingly bad. That's the problem. Cody, I will agree with you. Like, this has been fucking horrible from a major league standpoint. It's embarrassingly bad, but I think we kind of talked about this earlier, Jake. Nothing as far as like a losing streak goes was going to change my opinion about this season, right? Like a 10-game losing streak, and even the manner that they're losing these games, it doesn't change my opinion of this season because I didn't expect them to do much this year. So, like, kind of what Jed was saying, and I guess I'm kind of in agreement with what he was saying. This doesn't change the timeline, right? It doesn't change the timeline just because you're on this huge, long losing streak and not playing all that well right now, are absolutely downright awful. I just don't think it affects all that much. And we got our boy Tyler in here as well in the comment section.
I like this comment.
I've got the solution, guys. We need Rick Sutcliffe back in the TV booth. Last time he was there, we proceeded to win 3 straight series. Bring him back. Maybe we win out. I don't know. Just spitballing.
Tyler, I love Sut. I think Sut's a blast to listen to in the booth. And I think he's especially – I'm not a huge fan of the 3-man booth, but I think he and JD with Boog is a really good trio. The only complaint that I have, and I know that people tweet about this every time Sut's in the booth, is he's got to let shit breathe sometimes. He gets really amped. He's kind of – you know what? He's not exactly but he's kind of like Ron Santo, right? Like Santo had the kind
He's
of
the
have a remark.
passion.
Yeah, he got passionate about stuff and kind of, even if it wasn't a remark, he was just like, oh, like it was just like a sound that he made, you know, he
Yeah.
reacted to everything. But I think that a lot of Sut's insight is great. Yeah, Tyler, hey, who knows? Maybe Sut comes back and we go on a little roll. I like it.
I like that idea too. That's our boy Tyler, is a contributor at OnTap Sportsnet. I actually really want to get him on the show at some point here as well to get his thoughts. I know he does like live streaming MLB The Show. He plays MLB The Show and does like live streaming. So I've watched that a few times. He's very entertaining. Always in our Slack channels, just like making jokes and stuff. So yeah, credit to Tyler. If Killian gets lit up, before I get to this comment, like you were saying about Sutcliffe, at first I was like, I don't know if I'm a fan of Sutty, like on the mic, because there were some times I'm like, what are you talking about right now? And then now as we've progressed, that passionate Cubs fan kind of comes out, and then his analysis has gotten even better, like from what I've heard. And I like the passion. I'm not gonna lie,
man. At the very least, like he should do pre and post game. Like he should be the guy that sits alongside Cole Wright. And like if we want to get three, like pre and post, it makes sense to have two other analysts alongside.
How have you felt? How have you felt about Cameron Maben so far?
So has he been doing it recently? Because I haven't watched post game in a while.
Recently, I've only heard him maybe twice, I want to say, but I didn't get a real good gauge because I was always preparing for something else, and I was just kind of, he's in the background, but that's why I was wondering if maybe you had heard him or not, but if not, you know.
Yeah, he was on for the first time like pretty early on in the season, and I remember like really, really enjoying his insights because I think he was in the booth. Right, he was in the booth, or at least like for part of the game, he was in the booth. Like maybe one of those things where like in the middle innings, he came in and then did post game. I think that's what it was, and I loved it, man. I think the guy is he's got really, really great knowledge of the game. I loved him on the compound when they had him on the podcast last year, and I think the fact that Hap spoke so highly of him as a teammate. And Zach Short had experience playing with him in Detroit as well at the alternate site. The fact that you've got guys who are still in the game who were the guy's teammate that spoke so highly of him says a lot about, I think, about a guy's ability to talk about and relate to the game of baseball. So, yeah, I think the next, like, this is obviously not anything we were planning on talking about, but I think the next thing that we're going to see in the evolution of Marquee is I think they're kind of trying to suss out whether they want to do a permanent 3-man booth, which I think they will probably decide against. Even though someone on, Al Yellen I think he writes for Bleed Cubby Blue or one of the other blogs.
Yeah, it is Bleed Cubby Blue. Yeah, I'm familiar with his work.
He wrote something that's felt like so like old man yells at cloud to me. He wrote like a really in-depth critique of Boog and JD in the booth, and I was just like I don't listen to the games as closely as I watch the games, but I didn't like. I'll go on the record saying like I like Boog and JD a lot, and like I don't think Boog is Len Casper because Len started as an in-market guy. He didn't start as a national guy. And I know Boog was an in-market guy with the Marlins as well, too, to start his career. But he's been a national guy for so long and he still is doing national broadcasts. So, like, it may be kind of messing with him that he, like, still has a national broadcast cadence. But, like, I like him, and I think his rapport with JD is great. I love it. I think the two, like, they have very dry humor and, like, crack jokes with each other, and I'm all about it. But, yeah, I think getting Sut involved more often, even if it's just having him in the booth for like an inning or two and then having him do, pre and post game. I think that's, I agree with Tyler's comment here. The guy is so honest regarding referring to Sutcliffe, whether you agree with him or not, he speaks his mind and it's so entertaining. And I would add, this is not Tyler, I would add refreshing. He says, Tyler goes on to say, I'd compare him to Boston's Dennis Eckersley. I forgot Eck is in the booth with Boston. I have listened in on them, and they're a good booth.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was definitely worth pulling up there while you were talking about him. I mean, last year was it the first year last year when Boog was with the Cubs? Was that his first year?
I think it was. Yeah,
Trying to
because they
remember.
launched Marquee in 2020. So Len was still in the booth.
Len was the first year that Marquee launched.
Yes.
Okay, so Boog, when he first came on board with JD, I thought that there was like, it takes time to build a rapport, right? It takes time to build that chemistry. And even for people that are like on a mic together, like no one really understands, like when we do this podcast, how long it actually takes to build chemistry with somebody that you're doing a podcast with.
Right.
Like for me personally, I think I've now gotten to the point where it's like, and this is not like me being like, oh, fucking tremendous podcaster. No. But it's like I've gotten to a point where it's like, I don't care who's over there. Obviously, I love that Jake's here right now. But like, you know, you can build, you can do it with whoever. And that's the way Boog is because he's been on the national level for so long. Right. And like, it only took a matter of time before JD was like, oh, all right, that's his tendencies. And then Boog was like kind of going to his tendencies, and then they build that rapport. And I think actually this season, I really, really enjoy Boog and JD a lot. And last season, I was like, I'm not quite sure, but like at times I was like, I love it. But, you know, I'm watching Cubs baseball, so if something good happens, I'm going to love it regardless.
Yeah.
This year, I'm like, this is a great, you know, broadcasting crew together. I love it.
Yeah, Yellen was saying something along the lines of like, or like there were fan comments that he pulled too. Like he surveyed some fans. So I can't remember if it was Yellen that said it or the fan comments, but someone said along the lines of like, Boog and JD will go like an entire half inning without calling the game, and they'll just talk about a story that's unrelated to the game. I'm like, what?
But we're watching the game though too. Like it's on TV, it's different.
If they do it, it obviously hasn't bothered me. And like I specifically was listening for that in the game today, and I didn't notice that. So I don't know. Like
I think there's times where yes, it'll be a little bit of what you call it. Like there will be times where there's like a lot of space in between, right? But where they're just talking stories of, you know, whatever
they get
amongst
off track
each other.
Or they get on a tangent. Yeah.
But when you're watching the game, I think it's different than radio. When you're listening to it on the radio, when you're driving in your car, you need the play-by-play. You need the exact details of what happened. I need to know how far Ian Happ ran into the gap to catch that fly ball. Right. I need to know what the distance between him and the wall was when he made the catch or when he took his eye off the ball. You know what I mean? When it's JD and Boog, I don't need that because I can see how much of a distance there was.
So the other critique was that it feels more like a podcast, and it's like, oh, maybe that's actually why because I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I love podcasts. That's a great comp, maybe.
Yeah, so maybe that's why I like it, and guys who don't listen to podcasts don't enjoy it. But to me, it feels like I was just telling my buddies the other night, like they're not huge baseball fans, but I was like, I like baseball. I like going to baseball games because it's a nice conversational sport. Because like you can have a conversation with someone while you're watching the game, and you're probably not going to miss anything. It's an easy, relaxing sport to watch in that way. And I think that Boog and JD do a good job of treating it as such while still calling the plays, you know, as their job entails, right? Like I've had no problem. I do though. I want to loop back because I don't know. Do you guys usually go an hour?
There's times where we do. We haven't done a show since Sunday when Dubs was on with me. So you know what? Today, an hour 10. Like we can stretch this thing just a little bit. I think Ron and Juice will be okay if we stretch this a little bit because this has been so far just all quality content. We got a lot to talk about.
I'm glad that you feel like it's been quality. I agree. I've had a good chat so far. I do want to go back to Cody's comment really quick. I have a feeling he's not listening anymore because I think that he would have responded to you. But so let's go back to this really quick. So I'll read it again. Cody said, "Guys, all this is fine and the right way to look at things, but the Cubs have been embarrassingly bad. That's the problem." I'm going to dissect that a little bit. I think the problem is that we were sold the wrong expectations for this season. We were told that we could still compete. We were explicitly told that it was not going to be a rebuild, and here we are.
Right.
We're in the middle of, like, both of those statements have been proven false. And I think that's the thing that fans are frustrated about, that they feel lied to. Yes, the Cubs have been embarrassingly bad, and that is a problem. But I think if we had known, if it had been laid out, like, hey, we're probably not going to be very good this year, but there's a balance there, right? Like, you can't really say that, because you've got human beings that are going out on the field who are giving it their all. Whether or not it looks that way, like, these guys are going out there, like, trying to win games. It's not the right mix of guys right now. Right. And I want to say, like, I talked about this guy who said something about how, like, Jed created holes on this roster. He went in, like, his first thing was to stay under the salary cap. He would have added 2 more free agent starting pitchers. So he would have added Gausman and Rodon. Like, okay. And then he would have spent less on Miley and Smiley. So he wouldn't have spent on them. And then he would have signed Correa, even on the opt-out deal that he's on right now.
And so hindsight is 2020, though.
Right.
I mean,
go ahead. It still doesn't solve anything. Like, this lineup is better with Carlos Correa. And it's worth noting, too, that Correa spent a decent amount of time on the IL for Minnesota this year. So it's not even like he would have been playing this entire season thus far with the Cubs. He
started out really bad too before he went on the IL.
He was abysmal to start the season. So it's like, yeah, we could have done that, but the only thing that changes in the lineup now is that you've got Carlos Correa and what else? Like, I don't want to sing. I mean, you know what? We are singling people out. That's what we do in podcasts. Patrick Wisdom's been bad. I'm sorry. Like, he has not been good. The month of June, or
during this stretch, especially, it's been god awful. You can make arguments for his power, like carrying through stretches.
314. He's only slugging 314 this month. Last month it was 510. That plays. But he's striking out. He's in the 1 percentile for K rate. His K rate is 34.7. He's hitting the crap out of the ball, so he barrels it up when he hits it. But dude, if that guy could get his K rate under 30%, he'd be a stud. But the fact of the matter is, right now, every time he's come to the plate, it's been one of those things where it's like, oh, it's the Javi Baez thing where it's like, he's probably going to swing out of his shoes on a slider, isn't he? And that's what he's done. So it's like, even if you put Correa in that lineup, you don't have the right pieces to surround him with. It doesn't make a difference. Like, one player doesn't make a difference. And then you are handcuffed to this player if you sign him to a long-term deal, or if he doesn't take his opt-out, if he signs to the deal that he's on right now, you are handcuffed to this player.
It's a Jason Hayward situation. Yes. If he gets hurt or something or regresses, could happen.
You make those signings to put you over the top, not to make your team competitive. You put those signings to make your team a World Series contender. And that's not where the Cubs were at going into the season. Jed said that he was going to make sensible moves, and that's what he did by signing Suzuki and Stroman. They're both signed to contracts that put them on different timelines, but allow them to be pieces. Stroman's contract is flexible. If he's pitching well, I don't think he's going to get traded this season. If he's pitching well next season and the Cubs aren't doing well, he's going to get dealt. Like, that's what's being done right now. If it were as easy as this guy in my replies laid out, then any fucking one of us could be an MLB GM. It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Well, and then, like you said, Jake, let's go back to what you said earlier about the competitive advantage of not letting people know what you're doing, right? Because I think that's a big topic amongst the fan base. They want to know timelines. They want to know time frames. Are we competitive in 2025? Are we competitive in 2026, 2024? I just want to know. Just tell me. If he tells everybody his exact plans, then guess what? Then no one's going to want to offer anything for Wilson Contreras if he is in fact shipping him. No one's, because they know that he's going to be shipping him no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a trade chip that you can be like, you know what, you're going to have to really impress us because we're thinking about extending him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes. Is Contreras fighting against himself if he signs an extension? Would he be better off like waiting to the end of the season and getting offers from all the other teams in the league? Yeah, absolutely. As a business decision, that makes the most sense for Contreras. For the Cubs, it doesn't make sense to extend him yet until the end of the season anyways, now that we know that. Like, it just – because he's going to deny probably – I know he wants to be here, but he's probably going to deny contracts as far as whatever the Cubs are offering because he's not sure if he could get more on the open market.
Right.
He's probably going to be thinking, no matter what, I know what I'm doing right now. I know how valuable I am. I know how well I'm hitting. I know how well I'm performing for this team. I deserve more than what they're offering because that's why they're offering it.
It's not even that he deserves more than what they're offering. It's that he deserves to be fought over and wine and dine this. And he does. He totally does.
He does. He knows he's one of the best catchers in the league, right?
And not only is he the best catcher in the league offensively this year, he's one of the best offensive players in the league. He's got a 923 OPS.
Yeah, look at the barrel rate too.
Right,
the barrel rate
932 OPS. Like,
it's ridiculous. Look at the barrel rate compared to he was just under the last time I looked, just under guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, like third in the league. Are you kidding me?
I mean, the dude, the StatCast page is all red. I think he's totally benefiting from the DH. I haven't broken down what his stats are at DH versus catcher, but that's worked really well. And hey, for what it's worth too, Yan Gomes has looked really solid in spelling Contreras. He's looked solid at the plate. I would love to extend Wilson Contreras. I would love nothing more than to make a man with that fire who clearly takes the leadership role seriously. He's not like Rizzo and Bryant felt kind of thrust into the leadership role kind of arbitrarily because they were the team's stars. Whereas Contreras is taking it and running with it. Obviously we all saw the Morel, we've heard the Morel story. We saw him, the deep breath thing, but it's, and hey, that's a catcher mentality too, right? That's why we see so many catchers go on to become managers or coaches in some capacity, because they have that leadership mentality behind the plate. You have to be able to command a game. You have to be able to command a pitching staff, etc. So clearly it's translated well for him to the dugout. And so aside from his offensive performance, which has been really good, you kind of want him as a mentee or as a mentor, right? And it's totally different than Jason Hayward's mentorship, because Contreras has a history of being a good offensive player, whereas Hayward did not. So not only is he a good offensive player, he's a good offensive player at a position where offense is at a premium. Because after, it's like Contreras, Salvador Perez, who's not having a great season,
Tyler Stevenson,
who maybe it's all kind of smoke and mirrors. I've looked under the hood at some of the numbers. It's he's good, and I think he's gonna be good. Like Dalton Varsho, who's a guy who's probably not on a lot of people's radar, and probably on yours because I know you're a fantasy guy as well. But and Will Smith. So after those five guys, it totally falls off a cliff. That's 25 other teams that don't have catchers that are contributing to their offense on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. I mean, Alejandro Kirk, maybe you can make the argument for
and
the new guys,
what about
MJ Melendez.
Real Muto is kind of falling off.
But look at Grandal; he's fallen off too.
Oh yeah.
Grandal big time. Yasmani. It was. I remember when it was the three catchers to worry about in the league as far as hitting goes, and this was when Salvador Perez was even out for a time period. JT Realmuto, Yasmani Grandal, and Wilson Contreras. The guy that's standing tall amongst this crew and still doing it is Wilson Contreras. And I guess the only reason why I got on this topic of Contreras in the first place is because where you were going with the conversation of, all this hindsight stuff, the guy calling you out on Twitter about, the video that you made and stuff like that. Yeah, hindsight is great, right? You wouldn't have given that much money to Wade Miley. You wouldn't have given that much money to Drew Smyly. I think still they got pretty damn good deals for those guys. I just think that they've been out. Drew Smyly's been pretty damn solid when he's been in there for the most part.
And so is Miley.
Miley too. And that's the thing that frustrates me. It's like, okay, did they know that there was going to be arm issues coming into the season? The Reds got rid of everybody. They were just dumping salary. That was an owner move. That is an owner that you could be fucking pissed at.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of a team, you could be pissed at, was it Castellani or whatever his name is?
Yeah,
you could be pissed at the Reds owner. You can't be pissed at Ricketts for this, because this is Jed Hoyer tearing it down to the studs after there were many mistakes made, as you mentioned in your video, by Theo Epstein. And I love Theo. Grateful for everything that he did, but there were mistakes made, and people want to say, well, Jed was here too. That was still Theo's show. There's a reason why Theo stepped down, because Jed was going to be taking over the show now, and he was like, okay, you know what? I don't want to do a full-out another rebuild or retool, whatever you want to call it. And the tweet that I put out earlier in the day, Jake, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. I put out a tweet, and it was a thread. It was a complete thread. The last time the Cubs went through a rebuild, now let's look at 2012 and 2013. They didn't have as many core pieces as they have now that I would call core pieces, because I still believe in Seiya Suzuki. I still really do. That talent is unreal. Like we saw what he's done overseas.
It's killing me that he's not playing right now. It's killing me.
That's a big reason why, though, this team is where they are right now. Yeah. It's Seiya, it's Stroman, it's Miley. If you have them for the full season right now, this team is not – the record's not what it is. It's just not. But look at these core pieces, in my opinion. If you didn't trade any of these guys, you can say what you want about Willis Contreras. He might get traded. Looks like he's going to. Ian Happ, he might get traded. We don't know. But he's a guy. He's a former first-round draft pick by this team. Seiya Suzuki, Nico Horner, and Christopher Morel, who has been unreal and hit another home run today. You've got 5 guys there. Now, let's look at the Cubs the last time they did a rebuild. 2012, 2013, the Cubs didn't have this many future core pieces. I'm just going to read it off what I said. They had Rizzo and Castro, Anthony Rizzo and Starlin Castro. That's it. So despite the record right now of what this team is, which what's a 40-loss team at this point, I'd still argue this team is way further ahead, especially with what they did in the last trade deadline. This team's way further along as far as their rebuild goes than they were the last time around, because I just don't think they're not banking on Brett Jackson and Josh Vitters. And, those were the top guys last time around, right? Those guys flamed out. There will be prospects that flame out that don't come to fruition. And no one's saying that all these prospects are going to be like A+, future all-stars.
Not all 80-grade prospects.
No, absolutely not. I mean, they don't even make 80-grade prospects, right? Until they're like, oh shit, this guy's an 80 grade at the MLB level.
Yeah, Juan Soto, and Ronald Acuna are 80-grade prospects.
Yeah,
Mike Wander, I think, was a 70. So and I agree with you. I think it's a great point. I think the thing that I want to say, was Cody talking about this on CHGO? Someone was. I heard someone talking about this somewhere, and I agree. You're right that the core pieces that we may have in place right now. And I think the important thing too that I was talking about, for the most part, they're good complementary pieces. If we keep Wilson, he's a cornerstone.
Yeah.
Hap still might be, man. I mean, he's 27? He just turned 28, or he's going to turn 28.
I still don't think we've seen the full fucking Ian Happ.
Man, especially that he's hitting the right side this year. I mean, it's so those two, at least one of them's a cornerstone. Nico Horner is going to be a solid player. We talk about him on dingers as Trey Turner light.
I love that. I love that.
A little bit. I think that's not a bad comparison. He's whatever. Right? We don't have to dig into that at the 110 mark, but I think the big thing that's frustrating for some people right now is that we don't have a Chris Bryant in the system. Yes, we've got Brennan Davis, but Brennan Davis doesn't have the same pedigree that Bryant had. We don't have a great Bambino. We don't have, he's Babe Ruth. We don't have Kyle Schwarber in the system.
We might have a baby A-Rod though, and Christian Hernandez.
Oh, dude, yeah, he's been looking good too. So like, the thing is, you make a good point. Like, we have young guys who could be those next guys, and I think Cubs fans, understandably so, are sick of having to wait, and I am too. The team should be consistently good. And all I am trying to communicate to Cubs fans is that I believe that that's what Hoyer is trying to do right now. He's trying to set that up and get the team in a position where we can continue to cycle players in and out of the lineup, but continue to stay good. Like, I hate to use them as a comparison, but look at how the Cardinals have done it, man. Like, one way or another, they always have these cornerstone pieces, like Arenado and Goldschmidt right now. And then they just get guys that are, solid contributors, and some blossom like a Tommy Edman type that are just able to fill in.
Brendan Donovan.
Yeah, what the hell, man? So like, that's the Cubs can do that. And yes, we are a big market team. We should be able to spend more than the Cardinals. We will spend more than the Cardinals, but sorry, like, we need to do it when it makes sense to, not just because we can.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I'm so sick of hearing, are they going to spend? Are they going to spend? Yeah, they're going to fucking spend. Because if they don't, people like us, people like me and like you, Jake, and like Ron and Juice and all the guys at Dinger's podcast are going to hold their feet to the fucking coals and tell them this is when you need to spend, right? Because if it gets to that point of they're not spending money when they need to be spending money, like when we see this thing progressing and we see these guys coming up to the big league level and producing, it's like, we need to get over the top now, Jed. We need that extra piece, like we've talked about during this whole show. I will be just as fucking mad as everyone else. I can guarantee you that. I will be just as mad as everybody else. But right now, I'm not. I can't be mad at this because you said it perfectly earlier. He has done nothing. Jed Hoyer has done nothing to prove that he can't do this job yet. It's just he's done nothing to prove that he can as well, because nothing is proven yet. Right. It's just I'm following along with all these moves, and I think there are a lot of very good moves that he's made, and I agree with a lot of them, and I'm buying into what he's doing. I really am. He said earlier in the press conference, when he was talking to the media, he said, I'm not smart enough to know what the time frame will be. And that is also covering your ass to a certain extent. And I understand why people are like, it's misleading, right? Because it's like, I'm not going to settle on a time and then you guys are going to hold me to the fire and be like, well, if we're not competing in 2024. I think this is a quicker rebuild than a lot of people are seeing it as. I really do. I think this team.
You're right. I hope you're right, man.
I think this team can be competitive in 2024. And I mean, I might be the Lone Ranger on that. People are saying 2025, 2026. I think it's quicker than that. And it's because of the progression I've seen at the minor league levels. And are they all going to pan out? Absolutely not. We've already said that. But there's no reason to believe that this is a bad job done by Hoyer yet.
Yep.
Just because this one season, by all accounts, looks like a failure. And a lot of that is not his fault. And like you said in your video, or I don't even know if it was your video, David Ross, come on.
God.
Let's get the fuck out of here right now. It's not David Ross's fault. I get pissed when Nico Horner bats seventh, and I get pissed when Hayward and VR and Simmons is in the lineup, but they're on the roster. They have to play. And it's not David Ross's fault. Let's be honest.
No. Hey man, I don't want to be the one to call it, but I think I think that's a good wrap. I think that's a damn good wrap.
No, absolutely. Real quickly, I just want to look ahead to the Padres, or not the Padres, excuse me, the Atlanta Braves this weekend. Braves. Wrigley tomorrow, Friday, 1:20 start. Charlie Morton against Keegan Thompson. Thompson.
Morton's been struggling. Morton's been very up and down, more down than up this season. So fingers crossed we can break our streak tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think we got a good shot of doing it. Kyle Wright on Saturday, another 120 start, 2.57 ERA, 7-3 record. Justin Steele talked about his great last two outings, 1.5, 4.33 ERA. He's going to pitch Saturday against the Braves. I don't have the projected starters for each team on Sunday, but it is a 3-game set. They'll play another game on Sunday, and then the Cubs will take the road for what are they going to play? They're going to face the Pirates. And, Pirates for 4. And they're going to face the Cardinals in St. Louis, that boring-ass city, for 3. Jake, give me your thoughts on this next upcoming series. And we like to give Fly the W picks. So give me your Fly the W pick while you're at it.
Ooh, okay. So against the Braves, the Braves are good, man. The Braves are good. Acuna's all the way back, which is great for baseball. If you want to watch the series, if you're discouraged about watching the Cubs, you want to tune in for one reason, watch Ronald Acuna. Watch Kyle Wright too. Kyle Wright's sick. I think most people don't really know. Joe Musgrove is not a household name. Going into today's game, you and I know who Joe Musgrove is. We knew it was going to be a tough one, and he made it a tough one. Kyle Wright's going to make it a tough one on Saturday. Look, I hate to say tune in to watch guys on the other team, but Wright's a good pitcher. He's fun to watch, and Acuna is a generational talent, so watch those guys. As far as a Fly the W pick, I'm going to go with Hap. I think that's kind of a gimme, but he's just been hot, man. And I tweeted it today. I think you retweeted it. He's been really good from the left or from the right-hand side. I want to see him pick it up from the left-hand side where he's historically been a better hitter. So tomorrow, day game, Charlie Morton, a veteran who's been scuffling a little bit, might be losing it at the end of his career here. Hap, going yard. Calling it.
Yeah. I love it. Hap, I would love nothing more than to see him go yard from the left side. I'm wondering if all these adjustments that he did maybe in the offseason to fix the right-handed problem are kind of leaking over to the left side and being hey, that's not the power might be a little bit affected or something.
Yeah.
I don't want to come to any grand conclusions. It's not I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it's just something I'm thinking about especially as you were talking. The Braves are on an absolute heater right now. I mean, I don't know how many games they've won in a row. I had it pulled up in front of me, and I lost it.
They are on a big streak. Yeah,
they are on this is you got the Cubs on a 10-game losing streak, and the Braves. Let's count them up. I'm just gonna go ahead and count 1, 2.
While you're counting them, all streaks have to come to an end. So maybe we end their winning streak while we end our losing streak. That'd be nice. How many?
That would be nice. It's 14 in a row, and somehow they are still 4 games back.
Behind the Mets?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't realize the Mets were doing that well.
Mets are killing it. The Mets are killing it. Yeah, it's somehow 14. Did I say 14 games?
Yeah.
Somehow they are still behind the Mets in that NL East. 4.5 games back now. I think the Mets might have won tonight. So, yeah. Whatever way you want to look at it, it's a 10-game losing streak, 14-game win streak. We are facing the Braves the absolute wrong time, but we are at home. The Cubs are at home, so maybe the Federal Landmark will become more like the Federal Landmark and less like the other team's home ballpark like it was in the San Diego Padres series.
I hope so.
My Fly the W pick before we go ahead and get out of here, we'll get Ron's, we'll get Juice's, and we'll tweet them out from the Cubbies on Tap account at Cubbies on Tap. Cubbies on Tap. I think my Fly the W pick, I did not put a whole lot of thought into this. You took Ian Happ. I think I'm going to go ahead and have to ride the hot hand, and that is Christopher Morel.
Yep.
Give it to me. Give me all the energy. Give me Christopher Morel and Ronald Acuna Jr. both having excellent series. I don't really want Acuna to have a great series against the Cubs, but the electricity factor would just the entertainment level would just be raised a lot just by watching those two have good series. So I'm going to go with Christopher Morel. With that said, Jake, any last thoughts? I want to shout out the Dingers podcast. Definitely plug all your guys' work over there. I know you, Mitch, Jeff, Kevin, you guys have a great thing going on over there as well. We definitely appreciate you hopping on today. Just plug any and all stuff and give any final thoughts that you might have.
Yeah, man. Joey, thanks for reaching out he reached out to Mitch and I. Mitch couldn't join tonight, but I'm happy to be here. Love you guys. Love listening to you guys, and you're all great dudes. Know the game, know the Cubs. So I'm always happy to listen, happy to join. You can follow me at baseball_Buj. That's BUJ. And then Dingers at Dinger Cubs on Twitter. And we go live typically every Monday night. This week was an off week for us. We did Tuesday, but historically it's always Monday nights at 8:30 Central. YouTube, Twitter, wherever you want to watch. And then it goes on every podcast feed the next day.
Yeah, love that. Definitely encourage all listeners and watchers to check that out because, like I said, you guys do a great job over there. And that's a big reason why we wanted to have both of you guys on because we are also fans and we are also friends. We are in the same fantasy baseball league. Hoping I can pull out a W this week. I don't know how I'm doing. But with that said, we need to get out of here. Check out all the content at ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet, on all social media platforms, at Cubbies on tap, CUBBIES on tap. Me at Joey Knows Nothing, Jake at baseball_Buj. We got Cubs, Blackhawks, Bulls, Bears, even the White Sox, golf, bets, all that stuff at ontapsportsnet.com. But Jake, with that said, what do you say we get out of here? The only way that we know how, let's go Cubbies.
Let's go Cubbies.